13, what? Yeah, over 13 years for us to get here. So we are very elated, very happy that the bill eventually passed.
Great, great. So Sheila Minkah-Premo has been one of the people in the background. They do a lot. They don't talk about it. And here in the studio also is the lady who is shaking grounds with some new development as far as her advocacy is concerned. Shamima Muslim, member of the NDC communication team. She has been a gender activist for a very long time and also leading women's progress in the media landscape. Thank you, Shamima, for making time to join us.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah. How many seminars do you remember you have been over this affirmative action bill over the period?
I think uncountable. Uncountable. I think that the whole women's representation and presentation debate and safety transcends the affirmative action bill. I think I was a young graduate in 2003 when I started work with Legal Resources Center, and I was put on the Domestic Violence Coalition with my seniors. So people don't know where the passion comes from. It comes from the opportunity to have worked with people and being in spaces like them that really, you know, honed the advocacy and the passion for the issues, because very soon I came at close contact with germane issues that were real, that I could relate to from my background, you know, as a young Northern Muslim girl. And so, yes, it's been a long time coming. And what I know for sure is that every right that women enjoy today, they've had to claim. They have had to claim them from the actions and mobilizing of the women's movement in Ghana.
Let's go into the meat shortly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then former Deputy Attorney General is still here with us, Dimdio Prenka, Bobby Banson, also a lawyer and author of 2 legal texts on civil procedure and commercial arbitration. Now, I'll start with Sheila. So, yes, room for celebration. Yes, it's been 2 decades. Yes, but we know what's this country, what happens. It's not the passage of the law. It is the implementation of the law. We have all the beautiful laws.
So the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition, which is made up of a number of CSOs that came together to push for this law, the objective we set for ourselves are twofold. One is to push to have the law, and once the law is enacted, we would also push to ensure that it is effectively implemented. As Shamima indicated, I have a history with a similar objective, which was to push for the Domestic Violence Act. Afterwards, we worked together with the ministry, developed the implementing legislation, and did other things with them to ensure that the law worked. So it's the same kind of energy that we are bringing to this law. Having had it passed, having helped to push to have it passed, we will also help with the implementation.
Right.
We will work with the ministry in developing the relevant regulations or legislative instruments required for it. One of the things that is supposed to be done is to come up with a plan of action to ensure that this is supposed to be developed by the Gender Equity Committee that is responsible for the law. We also work first to ensure that this, as early as possible, this committee is put together. One of their key activities is to come up with a plan of action. We'll also work with them.
We'll go into aspects or salient aspects of the law shortly. Yes, but first, what's the justification for it, particularly at this time? And I'm going back to my example. The University of Ghana is such a beautiful example to use. The leadership of the University of Ghana, from VC, from Chancellor, VC, Registrar, name them, and the heads of departments, littered with women. And I'm saying, in one particular school, at one point, over 70% women.
I think that this is one, I don't know whether I would call it a positive development in our history, and it's a rarity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in most of these public universities, if you're using public universities as an example, majority of the leadership is male. It just happens that currently at the University of Ghana, yes, the chair, the vice chancellor, etc., many of them are women. And I believe that, I'm not too sure whether it was intentional for it to reflect in that way. But whatever happened, that the key leaders there are female, it's for me, it's a credit to the competence of those women who are out there.
Right.
Because they are also not there just because they are women, but because these are very capable women who have worked, some in the public sector for a long time, some in other sectors, and were appointed based on pure merit.
Therein lies my question.
Yes.
What's the justification for this? Shouldn't women get to where they must on merit?
Yes, women must get to where they are based on merit, but we live in a patriarchal community. We live in a culture where basically the headship of men is what is the norm. That is the norm. And therefore, women who are even qualified and who want to occupy certain positions have challenges in, either aspiring to get there, etc. A lot of women, for instance, who are very capable, have basic education, some even more tertiary education, very qualified, who want to go to parliament. It is very difficult because you have to go and campaign on platforms in communities where they don't see you as a natural leader. And a lot of insults are hurled at you. If you're not married, then, excuse me to say, you're labeled as an Ashawa woman. If you're married, I've been told, some of them are asked, have you finished organizing your home before you're at the platform seeking to come and represent us? So people don't naturally see women as leaders, and a lot of obstacles are put in their way. And therefore, it was necessary to have legislation, because I think you're asking about the justification. This is justified. One of the key justifications for this law is in our own constitution, Article 17 of our constitution. Article 17, first of all, says there should be no discrimination on the basis of gender. It defines what gender is, etc. But 17.4 is very clear. It says that where historically it's been found that there's been discrimination in certain sectors against one gender, there is nothing wrong if Parliament passes a law to bring in policies and programs to address the imbalance. And this is what this law is seeking to do. I would also mention 35, 5 and 6, where it says that in recruitment into public offices, regional as well as gender considerations should be taken into consideration. So the whole thing is talking about balance, okay? And like I said, because a lot of studies, existing studies, shows that when it comes to leadership positions, there are fewer women in leadership positions as compared to men. This legislation is seeking to sort of put strategies in place to let this happen in a more maybe strategic way. And this is the same steps that other countries have taken. Many countries, both Western, but we like to use examples within the African continent. Many countries that have seen a lot of women in leadership, it was through legislation that they used to ensure that this happened. And for me, one of the classic areas where you see the numbers of women is very low, which is in parliament. Out of our 275-member parliament, only 40 are women, making it 14.5. The UN, which Ghana belongs to, Ghana is a member of the United Nations, has indicated that minimum threshold when it comes to gender representation is 30%. We are way below. In Ghana, the highest we've ever had is 18.5, and this was in 1965. After we had the first affirmative action law in 1960, when we became a republic, and the then president pushed to have this representation of the People's Act, which brought in 10 women. People saw the women working and could see that women could also be leaders. Yep. And therefore, at the next election, people voted for women. And I'm sure that if the democracy hadn't been interrupted with the coup d'etat, I am sure naturally we would have progressed to a level where we would have reached that level where the competency, they'll look at your competency and not just your sex. So this law is necessary to propel, to enable us to ensure that there's inclusion.
The Constitution in the directive principles of state policy makes a requirement for the balance in gender.
That's it.
The politicians have not lived up to it. That's the Constitution, yes. The supreme law of the land.
Yes.
What's the guarantee that they will live up to a statute, an inferior legislation, so to speak?
There is, well, you know, constitutional provisions, sometimes it's difficult to apply them directly, okay? That is why acts of parliament are prepared to ensure that it picks up provisions from the Constitution that needs to be actualized to give it legs to work. So for me, since this document went to Parliament, they have looked at it, they have seen the need to have something like that in our country, I believe that they will comply with it. This is an act initiated, yes, by the executive, went through the parliamentary process. They have seen the wisdom in having such a law. I believe that they would comply. I believe strongly that they will comply with it.
Initially, it was to go under a certificate of urgency. And the Speaker says, no, I want to have broader consultation and input into it, so it won't go through that way. You were a bit disappointed.
You
Has
know,
anything changed?
We've been doing a lot of lobbying. So we've been in and out of parliament, both lobbying individual people, etc. One of the things, after it was laid under the certificate of urgency in October, one of the bodies, so we saw that it was referred to the Gender and Children Committee. And they indicated that they had looked at, they themselves indicated that they had looked at the law and they needed more input from outside. And therefore, they didn't think it was going to be possible to use the certificate of urgency, which required them to sort of handle the law themselves and push it. We then saw the Speaker, also trying to get an explanation as to what was going on. And he was also very clear that the nature of this law was such that they needed input, they needed stakeholders to bring in their own views and perspectives. So after that conversation, we as a coalition understood what the dynamics were. And we also realized, having seen the bill, that the bill itself had a few challenges at that time with it. And we thought that this was an opportunity for us to then also contribute and make an input and work together with Parliament and the ministry to ensure that this law got passed. So it was an initial shock, but upon further reflection and upon talking to the relevant committees and the members of Parliament, we realized that maybe it was the wisest thing to do. Okay. And it gave us an opportunity to work together with that committee that was mandated to consider the bill and to help to make our input and then engage with them.
Right. I'll